Thank you.
Now, where should we get started? I think we should start from the MPC meeting today, because that's what a lot of economic analysts are looking forward to. It starts today. I guess it's ongoing right now.
Yes, it is.
The meeting will end tomorrow. It's a two-day policy meeting where you see the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, and members of his team go together into a room and crack their heads, bring out all the data possible, do a lot of research from the Monetary Policy Department, of course, of the CBN. Then they will begin to analyze it. What was inflation? What was unemployment? How has this been? What the MBS has brought out? And the beautiful thing about it is that out of all the members, each person will have their own views, and they will come to an agreement at the end. What does this say for you? That this is the first meeting in 2018 after many months of tussle, yes, and all of that.
It's interesting. You actually, the last time I believe I sat with you on this show was a day before the meeting in November.
That was last year.
Yes, last year, November.
Yeah,
that was
the last meeting.
Actual meeting of the MPC. It's unfortunate. The MPC, just like the other issues of economic importance, is a victim of the political system. There was a while the Senate refused to confirm members of the MPC because of the so-called tussle between them and the presidency on who needs to be nominated and who needs to be confirmed. I think it's unfortunate that we have gotten to this level in our political discourse when we cannot even separate. We are willing to cut our nose to spite our own face. Because if the MPC does not hold, there's a lot of implications. Like you mentioned, the MPC is the highest decision-making body in the monetary system of Nigeria. The MPC is supposed to be independent. It's supposed to meet often, periodically, monthly, actually.
Once in 2 months.
2 months, to dissect data and to come out with policy positions. The market is watching out for those policy positions. Investors, especially overseas investors, that often are the biggest sources of our foreign exchange. People think it's oil. Outside of oil and gas, when you look at what constitutes our foreign reserves, it is inflows from portfolio investors. They are looking and they are watching out for the body language of the MPC to determine where the direction of rates are going to. Businessmen are also looking to determine whether to put their money in treasury or to put their money in real business. Again, you are making a decision on interest rates, which is one part of what goes on in the MPC. The other part of the MPC decision-making also has to do with inflation targeting and job in terms of full employment, which is also should be one of the targets that the MPC is driving towards. So these are things that are discussed at the MPC that has implication. For example, now, it seems the central bank, working with the fiscal policy makers, the guys in the Ministry of Finance and Budget and Planning, have already made a decision that they are going to replace our local treasuries and the local debt with international debt that comes at much lower.
Foreign borrowing.
Yes. So we step up foreign borrowing, reduce domestic borrowing. That means you retire the domestic loan, and therefore you can reduce the rate of borrowing domestically. This kind of publicly stated policy position will have affected the direction of foreign FDIs and portfolio investors coming into the country if it had already been stated in November. Now we are having to play catch up. If you notice that the stock market was quite unstable in the last 1 to 2 weeks, it should not be so. In fact, it makes no sense. The stock market should be booming right now, because if we are reducing domestic borrowing, and that means we're encouraging, you are reducing the interest rate on treasuries,
encouraging corporates
more investment in corporate stocks and bonds, and less going into treasuries.
But if you're talking about the stock market, perhaps what has happened to the stock market in the last few weeks is that of also profit taking, because the
earnings announcements
earnings announcements were happening and all of that, and the Nigerian stock market has been on the upswing since the year. In fact, the Nigerian stock market was one of the best performing in 2017.
But that's after a very bad performance. So we are really, I call that, maybe that's a dead cat bounce.
Somehow I agree with you, somehow. Bearing in mind also where we are coming from. If you take a look at the stock market, this year makes it, in fact, last month made it 10 years. 10 years anniversary of, however bad anniversary, so to speak, of how the stock market plummeted. 10 years, because 2008 we saw the oil share index, it reached, especially March, it reached about 60,000 point level, and it came down drastically. A lot of investors have not even,
they've not gone back.
Yes, they've not gone back, and they've not even recovered.
There's still a lot of money on the sidelines.
Some died from that kind of investment they did because of margin loans and all of that. So Somehow I agree with you. Dead cat bounce compared to where
we used to be.
We used to be,
yes.
But we are on the path of recovery.
Yeah, we are. We are. I mean, I think again, MPC is just one instrument in the toolbox of the central bank, right? But
that's the MPR.
The MPR and even the MPC meeting itself,
yeah.
Because let's not miss. I mean, it's a tool. If the MPC is meeting, you are not just looking for what Emefiele is saying. You are looking at his body language. I mean, this thing is almost like an oracle. Yeah, it's his body language, because for Emefiele is telling you, I'm holding the rate, but this is, and we are looking at his body language and saying this man seems like he's selling his treasuries, or he's buying his treasuries. Either way, you determine based on his body language. It should determine your investment decision, because again, in the hand of an independent central bankers lies life and death. You just mentioned people whose investment wiped them out and they're dead. If the central bank makes the wrong decision or makes the wrong bet, or you read it wrongly, it could it's a life and death issue, and it's your money and it's my money. So I think it's unfortunate that the Senate delayed that appointment. I think we're going to talk about the budget later in this show. The same thing is happening with the budget. The issues of economic importance should not be subject to political whims and caprices of the Senate. As far as I'm concerned, the MPC members were presented for approval. They should be approved. I mean, they didn't have anything against them. All they did was just a blanket.
What the legislature was talking about was that President puts Mago aside, and if you don't answer us,
to me, I think it's not related to our stock market. It's not related to our livelihood. It has nothing to do with whether we reach full employment or not. The Senate should be mature enough to understand that if they're having a tussle with the presidency, they have their powers, and the presidency has their powers, but they have only one boss. The boss of both of them is the people of Nigeria, and our well-being, our economic well-being, should not be to the whims and caprices.
Perhaps they also think they can hold the president to the jugular in terms of if they hold him where is necessary, he will bulge.
I have bad news for them. They are dealing with General Buhari. Maybe they think he's President Buhari, but let me give him his real name.
He doesn't want to be called generally.
Well, I will remind them.
Because they say he's a Democrat now.
Well, he's General Buhari. I hope they understand that. He's never going to budge. These issues are, even in the budget issue, where they are over there trying to trade in an election year with the budget. It's not going to happen. What we just need to do things properly. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, on this issue of the MPC, we should have approved it. We should have moved on. We should have gotten
because we've missed 2 meetings actually.
2 meetings.
Yes, for January
there was an
meeting
emergency
and March.
one that were done in January, which was more or less an emergency intervention by the CBN. Said nothing.
I would not say that was an emergency intervention.
Pronouncement.
Because a lot of us were worried. I remember even from December 2017, I was hammering it here. A lot of us were hammering it. And we were actually worried, but we were told in January that, come on guys, cool down, that all is still well, though that we do not have the quorum needed, but everything will still stand as it was. There's no need to panic. But so we missed the January meeting and we also missed the March
So how many rate cuts could we have had in those 2 meetings?
Because would you say rate cut or perhaps rate decisions? Because even if we had met, I'm not part of them. Even if
I think you are. I saw the CBN governor talking directly to you.
No, he will talk to me because he's got to talk to me. But I'm not part of the MPC. Now, what I wanted to say is that even if there were even if those 2 meetings held in January and in March, there would have been perhaps rate decisions. Would we have seen a cut?
Well, if at the minimum they will signal to us the direction they are going.
Okay.
And in that,
I think I agree with you.
So at the minimum they will signal to us the direction, and where they signal to investors, smart investors, the direction. Smart investors will always front run their decisions, and once you front run their decision, you of course this comes with some amount of risk, but you tend to also make an outsized profit. So I am saying that we've missed out on a lot of opportunities. Lower rate cuts, which I think everybody expects going forward, means that businesses can borrow at a lower rate. 3 months of businesses not being able to do so because treasury market could not respond to those kind of signals means that you missed out on in other countries. I mean, yesterday I was watching CNN and somebody was saying because of the NCAA basketball finals yesterday night, America was losing 6.9 billion in lost productivity because people are discussing their brackets in the water coolers. Here in Nigeria, we don't measure anything. We don't even know what is the impact of 3-4 months of not signaling. I'm sure we are talking about billions of naira. But we rather subject those kind of thing to beer parlor talk. Instead of us going to quantify that kind of data, and that amount of money is the amount of money the Nigerian Senate has cost us as a country. How many jobs did we lose? How many tools and equipment and facilities could have been built in 3 months? How many decisions? How many businessmen are still waiting? Not just for the MPC decision, but also for the budget. We have a responsibility. The Senate President and his 108 senators earning 13.5 million naira in running costs illegally have a responsibility to Nigerian people to do our work.
Oh, okay, we'll come to budget a bit later, but let's stick a little bit with this MPC, because let me ask you where you're, which side of the divide you are. Do you think that after the meeting tomorrow, the rates will be unchanged, that's kept steady, or cut, or higher?
I definitely don't think it's going higher. Definitely, that's a no-no. So when I put it in terms of probability, I would say we have a 50-50 chance of it being reduced or kept the same.
Where do you stand? I don't want that 50-50. What is your
head? What do I want?
Yes.
What do I want? I want a cut.
Most people want a cut. Okay. Yes, because...
What do I think will happen?
Yes.
I think there will be a cut. I think you have a 51% chance, actually. So let me give you a teaser. There's a 51% chance of a cut happening and a 49% chance of it being held steady. Why do I say there's a 49% chance? Policymakers are conservative by nature. You have few new members that will be there sitting and getting this information for the first time. They will not want to seem to have been hounded to making a rate cut decision, right? They will rather want to take in those information. At least today's meeting, there will be a little bit of camaraderie and a little bit of getting to know each other.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I'm not saying it's a 70-30 chance. I'm saying it's a 49% chance. That's the only reason. Otherwise, this is a meeting that is a no-brainer. We should be looking at a cut, because again, we're looking at the federal government raising Eurobond. We're looking at the government that is continually redeeming its treasury bonds locally. We're looking at the government that's already stated its intent to go into the market to raise additional sukuk bond for infrastructure. So clearly, the government is signaling that it's going for lower rates of debt than what it traditionally does, and so therefore the rate should go down. Our banks should engage in more investment type of activities. Our investors should direct the investment towards those areas, because I see rate cuts in the future, not rate increases. We do not have the inflationary pressure that we had in the earlier last year, when we had 18-19% inflation.
But inflation is still at a double digit, because I understand where you're coming from. If you want to hear my view, I think there should also be a rate cut, even as at yesterday.
Yes.
There's no better time than to reduce rates as at yesterday. But there are a whole lot of factors to also consider. Inflation, just like you said, has been trending downwards since the past 1 year and a half, as it were, but it's still at a double digit. It's unfortunate that even here in Nigeria, we don't have what we call inflation targeting, just like the UK. The UK has that, where the FSA, the Financial Services Authority, says we are pursuing an inflation rate of 5%. That's what we are going to pursue. I don't think I've seen it in Nigeria.
No. We don't. I don't even think our MPC works on targeting basis. I mean, both inflation or employment targets, I don't think has been on one of their core. They have.
There's an explicit number, and work towards it.
They don't seem to be working towards any. But the honest truth is, we are experiencing inflation on the bucket of it all. I think we need to look at the systemic issues versus the day-to-day issues, right? The systemic issues, reason why Nigeria is going to be under inflationary pressure, is because we have a government revenue that is not diversified, one, and two, because even when we get that government revenue in dollars, we go ahead and almost immediately convert it to naira, which automatically
means... You think our government revenue is not even diversified?
It's not diversified.
As much as it is right now.
Our economy is diversified, but the revenue, 90% of it still comes from
Why did you say our economy is diversified? Because a lot of people have said it's diversification by mouth.
No, our economy, so the oil and gas is only responsible for about 20% or less of our GDP contribution. So it's not an outsized amount by any means. In fact, agriculture still does 23%.
About 25%.
25%, yeah. So you have a little, so there's still it's reasonably diversified. The problem is government is not earning its revenue to reflect that.
So the way government earns now is still from oil.
Dependent on oil and gas.